What, then, is creativity? It is the innate quest for originality. The driving force is humanity's instinctive love of novelty, the discovery of new entities and processes, the solving of old challenges and disclosure of new ones, the aesthetic surprise of unanticipated facts and theories, the pleasure of new faces, the thrill of new worlds. Edward O. Wilson, The Origins of Creativity. Today, we start a 4-part series on creativity. Strap in, is going to get deep. But first, bone broth, soup, stuff for your keto diet, stuff for your intermittent fasting, stuff for your health. You know, bone broth is full of collagen. It can help replenish lost collagen and injuries. It can help with your workout recovery. And it can just help make you feel good. And our friends over at Kettle and Fire want to give you 10% off. Go to kettleandfire.com. Fill up your box. Fill it up with soup. Fill it up with bone broth. Fill it up with whatever you might enjoy. And to check out, use code BetterHumanhood for 10% off. That's kettleandfire.com. kettleandfire.com. Code BetterHumanhood at checkout. 10% off. Here we go.
Welcome to Better Humanhood, where we build a better world by building better people. We have to live on the planet, and we have to live with other people. We have conversations about making that a wonderful proposition.
Hey, welcome or welcome back to Better Humanhood. Hope you are doing fantastic. Hope you are having a great day, great night, great week, great life, a great moment, a great series of moments. You know, until very recently, neuroscience has had literally no clue what creativity looks like in the brain. In one book I read, dated 2015, so not that long ago, the author said neuroscience just hasn't figured out what creativity is yet. If you read if you listened to our series on happiness or read it over on the blog or the one on empathy, you'll know that there are some things we have quite a bit of information on. But our knowledge of the brain is constantly expanding, and now we finally do have some understanding of the parts of the brain involved in creativity or innovation or creating novel things, whether they be cell phone designs, symphonies, or programming languages, however you'd like to say it. I'm going to attempt in the first part of the series to not simply do a report on Elchanan Goldberg's book Creativity, The Human Brain in the Age of Innovation. It's a 2018 book on just what I've been hoping to learn. First, I want to give you a reminder from Susan Reynolds about that bunch of gray stuff inside your skull. You have the world's greatest supercomputer with over 20 billion brain cells and the possibility of forming 100 trillion synapses, so connections, at your disposal. And here's the kicker. In many cases, the types of connections that form are up to you. They are guided by your experiences, your decisions, and your desires. Yep, the brain is amazing. It can make more connections than you can count, and you can choose your own adventure, as it were. For perspective on what these numbers are, 20 billion brain cells, 100 trillion synapses, 1 million seconds is 11 and a half days. 1 billion seconds is almost 32 years. 20 billion seconds, that's the number of neurons you have, the number of brain cells. If you do that in seconds, it's 634 years. 100 trillion synapses, there are 100 trillion potential neuronal connections that you can make. If you were to just break those up in seconds just so that you could, put something a little more concrete on it, you probably couldn't, because it's over 3 million years. And we just don't have a conception of what that's like in time. Like, some of those neuronal connections that you have to make do things like they help you zip your pants. Some of them get plugged up with television advertising jingles from when you were a kid. And some of them bring you back to your childhood when you smell something that your mother used to cook. For me, I always remember the smell of onions frying in chicken fat around the high holidays, which is like right now. and also around Passover, which is in April. But that still leaves you 99 plus trillion to help you create something new. How does that happen? It really has to do with two parts of the brain that have only really been given their just due in the past half century or so. While Goldberg would argue that the whole brain is required for creativity, there doesn't appear to be a distinct neural pathway that creativity follows like what we saw with James Fallon in our empathy series. The primary parts of the brain linked with creativity are the prefrontal cortex and the right hemisphere. Goldberg says these two areas have really been treated like Cinderellas by psychology and neuroscience until very recently. We only stopped doing frontal lobotomies in the 1960s. And this is a procedure that actually severed the connection between the prefrontal cortex and the rest of the brain. And shock therapy was applied to the right hemisphere way more than to the left, because the left deals with language. Let's back up a second and take a look at the concepts we're dealing with. You know how I'm a fan of definitions and etymology. Creativity. Now, here's a definition, slightly modified to take the word create out of the definition, because why define a word using that word, right? Creativity is the ability to transcend traditional ideas, rules, patterns, relationships, or the like, and to make meaningful new ideas, forms, methods, interpretations, etc., originality, progressiveness, or imagination. The word only dates back to about 1800, so it hasn't been in use very long. The word innovation means the act of introducing new things or methods. And we've been using the word innovation in this way since the 1540s, so long time. And novelty seems like it's a bit different from the other two. Creativity and innovation are really types of human output, while novelty is a type of input. It means the state or quality of being new or unique. It dates all the way back to the late 1300s. But what I'm really interested in here is making something new, whether that's an invention or a song or a piece of artwork. You get the idea, just bringing something new into the world. We're going to get kind of technical in this part, as if we haven't already. Goldberg writes about three commonly studied brain networks. Those are the central executive network, the default mode network, and the salience network. Now, the default mode network is kind of the brain's chatterbox. We talked about that in our episode on joy. When you can't get your brain quiet, it's the default mode network that just won't shut up. The central executive network and the default mode network work antagonistically. That is, one can only work when the other is off. It's the central executive network that's at work when we're trying to tackle a complicated task. The default mode network is what's at work when either we have no task to work on or we're kind of on autopilot. Consider, for example, when you have a repetitive task that you've done a lot and don't need to concentrate on, like cooking eggs or driving. Default mode network is at play, but if something goes wrong, the central executive network takes over. The salience network was discovered more recently and has been studied much less, but it seems to operate kind of as a one-way switch to turn off your default mode network and turn on the central executive network. For example, if you're coasting along on a highway, letting your mind wander, your default mode network is at work, but if there's a sudden downpour, visibility goes down to zero and cars start slowing and you realize you need to pay attention, the salience network kicks the central executive network into drive. Default mode network may take back over later, but the salience network doesn't flip that switch. It only works one way. Salience is important here. Something that is salient to you is something that's going to jump out at you right now. So hopefully, for example, if you're engaged in this episode, creativity is salient for you at this moment. In setting up neuroscience experiments, Goldberg asserts, scientists have been generally concerned with what is correct. That is, press a button when a light is red, or is this picture the same as the last picture, instead of what is salient, that is, what I'm thinking about now. Creativity and innovation are more about salience, which we're only just starting to study. We're going to talk a lot more about how our brains process information, and novelty in particular, given our quickly changing digital world over the next couple of weeks, but we should start with a basic understanding of how our brains process the world. Our brains work fundamentally on pattern recognition. It's why we know a person we've never met is a person, and why we know a tree we've never seen before is a tree. It's the same with complex ideas. We just need to take the patterns and put them all together. When we fail to recognize a pattern, however, such as an object we've never seen before, or a doctor who's never seen a set of symptoms, the brain has encountered a novel challenge. A subjective feeling of being confronted by novelty is mostly the result of the left hemisphere's failure to find a solution, by failure of the incoming information to resonate with any of the previously formed attractor networks. So to simplify that language, if you've never seen a particular kind of tree, you understand it's a tree because it's got a trunk and branches and leaves. That already resonates with you as a tree. But if you see something that you've never seen before, you don't have the language to put together what it is, and so you need to do some deeper work. And that's where creative problem solving steps in. Something else that's going to come up again is metacognition, and this is something that the prefrontal cortex is responsible for. The prefrontal cortex takes all the things that other parts of the brain do and ties them together into something a little more cohesive. Goldberg likens this to building with a Lego set. If all the bits of information we have stored up in our brains are Lego pieces, then the prefrontal cortex, which actually doesn't fully mature until we're in our mid-30s, is responsible for shuffling the pieces around, assembling them, disassembling them, reorganizing everything. He writes that the ability to combine the elements of old ideas into new configurations is essential for generating new ideas and new concepts, which in turn is essential to creativity. This is how the figments of the human imagination, like mermaids and unicorns, came into being, and this is how many important scientific ideas, technological innovations, and artistic creations have been born. A lot of this work we do while we're asleep or otherwise in silence. In Why We Sleep, Matthew Walker writes that sleep provides a nighttime theater in which your brain tests out and builds connections between vast stores of information. In ways your waking brain would never attempt, the sleeping brain fuses together disparate sets of knowledge that foster impressive problem-solving abilities. In other words, when you go to sleep and shut off that conscious brain, your dreaming brain will go buck wild. REM sleep, Walker notes, offers the benefit of fusing and blending those elemental ingredients together in abstract and novel ways. During the dreaming sleep state, your brain will cogitate vast swaths of acquired knowledge and then extract overarching rules and commonalities as you get the gist of something. We awake with a revised mind-wide web, he calls it, that is capable of divining solutions to previously impenetrable problems. So when we say sleep on it, we really mean it. We'll get to prescriptive measures for getting more creativity into your life in the fourth part of this series. But if you're trying to piece something together that you came across during your day, sit for a while, meditate on it, or really collect your thoughts right before you go to sleep and sleep on it. Next week, we're going to present an argument for getting more creativity into your life. And I think it's an important thing because a lot of us don't strive for new things. And I think it really is important for the human experience. But until then, I hope you have a great day, a great week. I hope your life is fantastic, moment by moment, because that's what life is, right? Just a series of moments. I think I heard that in a movie once. Show notes for this and every other episode, go to betterhumanhood.com. This is episode 36, so it'll be directly at betterhumanhood.com/EP36. That's EP for episode. Go to kettleandfire.com. Use code betterhumanhood at checkout for 10% off your order. We will see you next time. Be who you will to be.
Thank you for listening. Get show notes and more at betterhumanhood.com. Leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And have yourself a wonderful day.